So next we have question number 11. What journal entry is required to eliminate the balance on suspense account? Dear received a check for $950 from his insurance company in the settlement of a claim for repairs to van. Okay, so first of all, let's talk about what should be the correct entry for this. He should debit the bank account while he should credit the van repairs account with the amount of 950. The bookkeeper has recorded check correctly in the cash day book, okay, but did not complete double entry. So that means the bookkeeper has recorded this debit side, but this credit side has not been updated. So if the debit side is greater than credit side, then we will have credit balance on our suspense account. And in order to eliminate this credit balance, we are required to debit our suspense account and credit this van repairs account. So our correct option is option C. Which of the following statements are correct? A separate suspense account should be opened for each error in the ledger. No, this option is not correct. We should not open a separate suspense account for each error in the ledger. A suspense account is sometimes opened to complete postings while more information is sought on a transaction. And yes, this option is a correct option. For example, let's say if we have received payment from one of our customer but we are not sure that payment is made by which customer, then in that case we can temporarily create a suspense account and we can complete the posting when more information is sought. For example, when we trace out that this specific customer has actually paid us against this invoice. Another example can be, let's say, if your customer has paid off partial invoice instead of full invoice, then you can temporarily hold the partial payment into suspense account. Next we have question number 13. What is the balance on the suspense account after this error is corrected? And trials balance includes a suspense account with a credit balance of $280. She has discovered that a supplier's invoice for $140 was entered twice in purchase day book. So that means we have entered a single transaction twice. So as a result, the debit side and credit side will remain equal. So there will be no effect on the balance of suspense account. So our correct answer is C. Now next we have question number 14. When these errors are corrected, what is the balance on suspense account? When J's trial balance was extracted, the total of debit balances was $450 less than the total of credit balances. That means the total of credit side has more balance than the total of debit side. So that's why we will open a suspense account with a debit balance. Debit suspense account by $450. When she checked, she found that a supplier's invoice for 225 had been debited to both the expense account and payables account. So first of all, let's talk about what should be the correct entry. The correct entry should be debit expenses and credit accounts payable by $225. So it was the correct entry. Now let's talk about what she actually did. She basically debited both of these accounts by $225. So it is a wrong entry. The expenses are debited correctly, but we have wrongly debited account payable. So now, in order to correct this transaction, we will credit our account payable by 225 and we will debit suspense account by 225. So as a result of this entry, we will have zero balance in our accounts payable, because by passing this transaction, we have only eliminated the wrong effect of this transaction. So that means we are still required to credit our account payable by 225 so that our debit and credit side can be equal. So again, we will pass this same entry, debit suspense account and credit accounts payable by 225. Now here you can see we have this 450 debit balance on our suspense account. Then we have this 225 debit balance in our suspense account, and finally again we have this debit balance on our suspense account. So that means 450 plus 225 plus 225 equal to 900 debit balance on our suspense account if we correct this error. And please let me correct it, it is not AP, it is account. Next we have question number 15. When P corrects the errors, what is the balance on his suspense account? When trial balance was extracted, the total of debit balance was 420 less than the total of credit balance. That means if the credit balance is more than debit balance, then there will be a debit balance on suspense account. Okay, so that means we have a debit balance of 420 in our suspense account. He opened a suspense account while he checked the entries. Then he found that a cash sale for $80 was entered correctly in the cash account, but no entry was made in the sales account. So because now we want to credit our sales, so we will create a debit suspense account by $80 and we will credit sales by $80. When journal entries were posted to the journal ledger, a debit entry of 100 for expenses was incorrectly posted as a credit entry of $700. So that means because we have credited this expense account by $700 by mistake, so we are going to debit this $700 expense and we will credit our suspense account by $700. Credit suspense account by $700. So that means right now we have successfully removed the effect of this wrong entry, but we still have to record the expense of $100. So that means we will debit expenses by $100 and we will credit suspense account by $100. So here we have credit amount on suspense account and here we have debit amount on suspense account. So we will net off them and we will have a credit balance of $300. Here we have a brief concept related to depreciation. First of all, let's talk about its definition. It is a reduction in the value of asset over time due to wear and tear of asset. And we can calculate depreciation using straight line method, and we can also calculate depreciation using reducing balance method. And in order to calculate depreciation using straight line method, we need this formula: cost minus scrap value divided by useful life of the asset. It is the amount at which we purchase our asset, and this scrap value is the amount at which we expect to sell this asset after its useful life. So here we are still expecting that After its useful life, we can sold out the asset at this price. And it is also known as residual value or salvage value. So let's say if the cost is $10,000 and the scrap value is $2,000 and the useful life is 5 years, as a result of this calculation we will get an answer of $1,600. So that means we will depreciate our asset for each of the 5 years with the amount of $1,600. Now if we talk about reducing balance method, then in this case the depreciation percentage will be provided. Here we have an example related to reducing balance method. Let's say the cost of equipment is $5 lakh and we have residual value of $50,000 and its useful life of 5 years and depreciation rate of 40%. Then in that case we will prepare a table like this in order to calculate depreciation. So here we are creating different columns. In the first column we have number of years because our total number of years are 5, so that's why we have 5 number of years here. Then we have book value at the start of each year, and in the end we have book value of asset at the end of each year. In the next column we have rate of depreciation, which is 40%, and in the next two columns we have depreciation expense and accumulated depreciation. So here we will simply use the book value at the start of each year and we will multiply it with 40% in order to get our depreciation for the year. But here we have one exception. In the last year of the asset, we will depreciate it only up to its residual value. So please let me explain you how we are making this table. It is the cost of our equipment and we are multiplying it with 40%, right? And that's how we are calculating this 2 lakh depreciation. And it is the column for our accumulated depreciation. In this column we are simply adding the depreciation of each of the rest of the year. For example, here we have depreciation for the year 1, which is 2 lakh. Okay, then we have the depreciation for the year 2, which is 120. We are simply adding 120 into this 2 lakh. That's how we are getting 320, and then in 320 we will add up this 72 to get this amount. And finally we have this figure of 3 lakh in our last column. So in order to calculate the book value at the end of each year, we need the book value at the start of each year, and we will less depreciation expense for the year into this amount, and that's how we will calculate book value of asset at the end of each year. So that means here we are deducting this 2 lakh from this 5 lakh, and that's how we are calculating this 3 lakh. And now this 3 lakh will be the book value of our asset at the start of next year, and then we will take 40% on this 3 lakh, and the same procedure will continue for the rest of the years. But here we have one exception in the final year. For example, let's say in the final year we have book value of the asset at the start of year, which is 64800, and if we multiply it with 40%, then we will have 25920. Okay, so if we use this amount for our depreciation, then that means at the end of year 5 our book value of the asset will not be equal to its residual value, but it must be equal to its residual value. That's why the depreciation of year 5 or the last year of the asset will be calculated as follows. We will use book value at the beginning of the year, which is 64800 in this case, right? And we will less salvage value, which is 50,000 in this case. So that's how we are calculating depreciation for our final year. right? Now here we have one more important point at the last. We always calculate depreciation on pro rata basis. For example, let's say our year ending date is 31st December and we have purchased an asset on 1st July, then in that case we will calculate its depreciation on pro rata basis, or in other words we will only calculate it for 6 months. Now here we have question number 16. How will the correction of this error will affect profit for the year ended 31st March 2016? G owns a grocery store and prepares account to 31st March each year. On 1st April 2015, he purchased a new delivery van costing $5,000. To use in his business, he incorrectly recorded this as maintenance expense. So first of all, let's talk about what should be the correct entry. Because G has purchased a van, he should debit non-current asset by $5,000. And on the credit side, he should credit either cash or accounts payable. But he incorrectly recorded this as maintenance expense. It means our expenses are increasing by $5,000. In other words, our profits are decreasing by $5,000, and at the same time, our non-current assets are also decreasing by $5,000. As a result of this mistake, G has a policy of depreciating vehicles over 5 years, assuming a nil residual value. So that means if we want to calculate depreciation, then it will be 5,000 divided by 5, and we will have 1,000 depreciation for each year. And right now, because we are not treating it as non-current asset, so that means our expenses is reduced by this depreciation amount, because we have not included this depreciation into our accounts. In other words, our profits are increasing by $1,000. Now if we specifically talk about profits, and if we correct this error, then as a result we will reduce our profit by 1,000 and we will increase our profits by 5,000, because as a result of mistake we were reducing our profits. So as a net effect, our profits will be increased by $4,000.